Hi, I'm Erica. I am your host of Powered by Joy podcast. I am a mom, a grandma. I am also an entrepreneur. I also love things to do with motorsports. I love taking my motorcycle to the racetrack and our car. So I love exciting things and adventure. I love to travel. I love to learn and grow, but I also love anything that is woo-woo and growing that way. I also love sparkles and pretty colors. So I also am pursuing joy myself and learning how to bring that to my life. So I'm here talking to you. If you are someone who feels bored, stuck, you have a lot of pent up emotions, feel anger, and maybe you even feel helpless to make change because you felt that way so long. And we're going to explore and get empowered to live a life that is on purpose and filled with more joy and pursuing more joy. And we're going to do that without sacrificing our commitment to our family and our friends. So welcome, and I am excited to go on this journey and a quest for joy with you. Today, we are going to be discussing the topic of flow. And you probably hear people talk about being in flow state or peak state, or, oh, I was so in flow. And you might be wondering, like, what exactly is that? Or you might feel like, no, you've got it dialed in. But I would like to talk about what it is and what it isn't to start. So first of all, I would say for me personally, flow feels like when I'm doing a activity or a thing and I lose track of time. Time flies by. I also notice that I'm not hungry and my phone doesn't distract me maybe quite as much. And it's just easier for me to stay on task, or like I find myself not wanting to quit or wishing I had more time to do the thing I'm doing. I also have noticed that my body usually feels really relaxed. I'm breathing in my belly, my chest isn't tight, I have slow breathing. I feel like my body has very little tension in it. And I would also say, when I'm really in that peak flow state, I notice my body's usually warm, not cold and tense. So there's like a warmth. Sometimes I feel really warm and fuzzy, just like, yeah. So I might even sometimes feel a little flush in my face, just like warm. And so I like to think about, sometimes we aren't even aware of those kinds of things. But I've also learned what puts me in a space where it might be easier to get to that. But I would say the things that it is not is opposite of that. So when I'm not in peak state, I have this thermometer thing. I just feel like I can literally feel my energy tank, like a gas tank just with a hole, like going, like dropping, draining really fast. I literally can feel this need to take a nap that just completely overwhelms me. And I will feel tension. I notice my chest is tight, like my breath is shorter, it's not as deep. A lot of times my hands and feet will get cold. Um, I will feel tension in my neck and in my back. I will get headaches, and I'm usually like the time is just dragging on, like, yeah, like dragging on. So these are some of the things I feel when I'm not in flow. I'm doing things that I really am not looking forward to. And I'm looking to look at my phone and get distracted or take that call or wishing that the time was up and I needed, or that I got to quit doing whatever I'm doing. So I can think of some things I was doing recently where I was like, is it almost over? So moving in the rain, not so much fun. Anyways, I would say that the next thing is, I will give you a couple examples. So one of the things I can think of when I'm in flow is that I love to have one-on-one calls, and sometimes I will be sharing, I'll call it an intuitive message for somebody, and maybe helping them work through a challenge. And when they get that hit where they like see it differently, and you can just hear the shift in them and them understanding that there's a different way to get to where they want to go, I totally get the warm fuzzies and like I could talk forever. Like it just really energizes me. And so that's a warm fuzzy for me. I would say not flows, kind of what I gave an example of, might be like when I'm doing like any sort of technical stuff. Like if I'm working with technology, it's not my favorite thing. And so it just feels like I have lots of hiccups. Like I will find that the computer will freeze up or my phone won't work. And it's like, oh, like nothing's going smoothly with the thing I'm trying to accomplish. Where when I'm in flow, usually things just click along, things are working, like everything that I need for that thing to be happening happens. Like maybe I'm not getting any calls. I just have that space to be in that flow state. So oftentimes you hear about athletes who are in that flow state. Another place I experience feeling flow most of the time is when I'm at the racetrack and on my bike, or even just on the street on a ride by myself. Like there's that flow where that's all you're thinking about. You're just happy and time flies by. Like that is a place where I love flow, is being on my motorcycle. And it brings me into my happy flow state. So that is another example of being in flow. Not being in flow would be helping somebody move in the rain, like all sorts of things. That's not flow, right? That's miserable. It's a pushing. Flow is more of a easy, fluid thing, I would say. But when we're not in flow, it can feel like you're pushing a freaking boulder up a mountain by yourself. How many of us can relate to that feeling? That might be you at work every day, even like, so it might feel like that some days when you're home with a family member or kids, or there's lots of times that we're not in flow. And so how can we bring it more into our lives daily if we are in that, I like to call it slog or the daily space where you're just not feeling it at all? One of the things I wanted to ask you is, do you notice when you're in flow and when you're not? Do you pay attention? Because those are clues that your gut, I like to call your inner knower or your knower, are talking to you, right? And a lot of us are so busy in our daily lives just going, right? We're just doing the do day after day, and we don't listen to our bodies and we don't listen to our intuition or our knower and hear what it's trying to tell us. And so I think a lot of us have just turned the volume down or completely off on our body and our intuition or our gut, whatever you want to call it. So I want to ask you, do you ever notice it? And if you do notice that you're not in flow, do you have ways that you can stop it or find ways to ease the tension in your body? And when it happens, have you paid attention to exactly how your body feels when it's not in flow and when you're not in a peak state or just in an easy, relaxed state even? So what are you doing to think about that and pay attention? Same goes for when you're in flow. A lot of people don't even notice it. Like maybe they're like, oh yeah, that felt good. Time flew, but do you take the time to actually notice how warm is your body? Like, where's the temperature? Am I inside? Am I outside when I tend to be in flow more often? Do I like it when the house smells nice or like being out in my garden? Do I and like noticing where you are, what's going on, like the five senses, like what is your body experiencing? So like, I'm consistently liking it when I have candles that smell nice in my house. That's a smell thing, but like paying attention to all of your senses when you are in flow and when you're out of flow, but that is going to help us tune into that intuition and our knower. It is us, that is that piece of us that's talking to us and we're not listening. So we want to take that time and ask those questions when we are in those states, like training ourselves to pay attention. Another example I'd like to give is that when I am at the track and we're buzzing around, one of the things you will hear people say is that smooth is fast. And when you are on the track, a lot of times people talk about being in flow, like you're in that flow around the track. So You could be somebody that is going around and you are slamming on the brakes, you're slamming on the throttle, and you're going really fast, you're making quick, you're steering, like you're jerking the wheel around, so like your inputs are hard. It's kind of the same thing as like in life, you are like trying to force things, or you're quick to react, or maybe you react maybe way bigger than is needed or out of proportion. I would never do that. I'm sure if you ask anybody that knows me, super guilty of doing that. Maybe once. Just kidding. Anyways, so one of the things that I learned from that trek was that like you can correlate it to life, is that oftentimes that same thing happens where if I'm trying to control and have hard, I'm hanging on tight, I'm trying to control everything, and I'm just sending it harder and I'm hitting the brakes hard, I'm just doing things hard and controlling and pushing. A lot of times you're not smooth and it makes the car upset and you end up going off the track, right? Or you lose control, or you don't get where you want to go, or it actually makes you slower because you're having to react even more. Like it's kind of a chain reaction. You want to control and push harder, and you're not being smooth and thoughtful about it, then you may end up having to brake harder at the next turn, which slows you down, right? So there's the opposite side of that is like flow state, where when you're in flow, they talk about smooth is faster. Well, if you ride with someone who's amazing, which I've had some opportunities to do, you'll notice that oftentimes this fastest person is like so smooth that you actually don't even feel like you're going that fast, because you like slowed down and smoothed out to go faster, which makes no sense sometimes. But same thing in life, like sometimes by us slowing down and like just a pause, I'm not talking about way slow down, but pausing before we react or make choices or pay attention, it might smooth things out. So we're not forcing, we're trying to go with the flow and not force things. So maybe the day doesn't play out exactly like you planned. You're thinking, okay, I'm going to run these 5 errands today. I got to get them done. And then your kid barfs, or you get that call on a deal you're working on, and it totally takes up an hour of your time you didn't plan. And you're like, well, okay, I didn't get 2 of my stops done today. Freaking fantastic, right? So you can get frustrated and hit the brakes really hard, or you can try to say, okay, that sucks. Is there a way I can move forward with the day and still get the things done? Or is that something that can actually wait and I'm just putting the pressure on myself to make that thing happen right now at this time? Could it actually wait till tomorrow when I actually have some downtime? So trying to take that pressure off of ourselves when we are in times where we're stressed or things aren't going the way we planned is like going with the flow. So think of like you're in a boat in the river, and going with the flow, you're like just not even having to paddle. You're still moving and making progress, and it's smoother. But if you're jamming on the brakes and being hard, forcing things, or you're deciding to go upriver, so you're in a boat, you've got a tiny paddle, 1, not 2, and you're just furiously paddling upriver in a fast river. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to be tired. You're not going to get where you want to go. It's going to take you longer to get where you want to go. Same kind of thing on the track, in the river, in life. Like it's surprising how by us slowing down, or even just being more willing to be flexible with stopping and looking for other ways to get through what we're going through in the day, that might bring us more ease and joy and pleasure, can add up to being in flow state more often, even when we're just going through our daily lives, the daily grind. So I would encourage you to think about that. And one of the things that can be challenging is like, okay, well, how do I do that? I'm like doing the do. So I would say in the mornings, when you get up, you don't have to write it down, but I'd love it if you did. But if you don't, one thing you could do is when you wake up in the morning, before you get out of bed, just say to yourself, I want to look for ways to notice when I'm more in flow. I want to notice when my body feels good and I'm in more pleasure, joy, or ease. Just setting that intention of, I want my brain, we're going to develop those neural pathways, and we're going to tell our brain, our supercomputer, to look for those moments where we're in flow. Help me notice when I'm in flow and what it feels like today. And the biggest challenge, extra credit, would be like do it for one whole week in the morning. And I promise you, you will start to go, oh, wait a minute, I lost track of time. How am I feeling? Like what's going on? Or you might be like, oh, I'm so not in flow. I'm ready to smack a person. So you're like, okay, pause. I can't get to this line fast enough or whatever. I'm gonna step out and I'm gonna come back tomorrow. I'm gonna order this online. I'm gonna walk out of the store right now. I'm just gonna walk away. That might be the easier, more pleasurable solution in that moment. So it's not always that you can have things perfect. Oftentimes, getting closer to being in flow more often can look like making a little choice that feels a little easier, a little bit more comfortable, and isn't maybe as painful or stressful or bringing as much tension into your body. So there's that piece of it, okay? So I want you to maybe make a note of that in your mind that you're going to do that for the next week in the mornings and try that out. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is you're going to make that intention, and then we're going to talk about the little things we can do. So maybe you haven't noticed it right away, but we're going to move forward, and you might be surprised at how easy it might be to bring yourself into flow more often. So I kind of mentioned some of those a little bit, but some of the examples, this might sound crazy, but let's think about house cleaning. Okay, you're house cleaning, or maybe you're stuck at your desk at work and you're just like, this sucks. I'm just feeling meh, like whatever. Okay, I would ask, do you have the ability to have music on at your desk or in your ear? I personally, when I'm vacuuming or cleaning my house, I crank up really loud music. So I would encourage you to try putting on some music that is so good that it would make you dance. If you feel that kind of freedom in your life, that you would dance if you could, where it just really is bringing you some energy, like upbeat. We're not talking about depressing music, but like something that like increases your energy, that can completely shift how you're feeling. And then another thing I would say it for me, like, is and not everyone can do this in their place of work. So I am very blessed that I can work from my home office most of the time. But there are times where I come up against a roadblock, or I'm just feeling kind of stuck or blah or brain dead. I will again stop, turn on really loud music, and I will dance my brains out for a song or two, get my heart rate up, and like I'm totally back. So it shifts me out of the not flow state and puts me back in a place where I can slip into a little bit more flow. But another thing I would say, and this sounds little, but like I changed the lighting. Like I had to redo my office. I wouldn't come in here. I couldn't get in a flow state. I couldn't get creative. I couldn't solve problems. I just hated being in here. So I went through and I redid the office. But the biggest thing is my lighting. So what I do in the morning, this is going to sound silly probably, but I come in here and I turn on my lights. I have some LED lights and I turn it all on. And so it's nice and bright. And then I leave and I go do like my breakfast and finish my morning routine, so that when I enter my workspace, I'm like, oh yeah, this will feel good. I love all the lighting in here. It just makes me happy and adds to me feeling flow. Another thing is like, I'm paying attention to how my body feels, and I'm trying to increase ways that my body can slip into that space easier and easier. So it's not always this big thing that you have to do. It's in the minutia sometimes. And so I will only wear clothes that feel really good. Like the fabric has to feel good on my skin. It has to be soft. It has to feel good. That's another little thing. So I'm adding into like this piggy bank that makes it easier for me to drop into flow. I'm putting all these little tools in my tool belt. So for me, I want my house to smell nice. I might need to go put my feet in the grass on a sunny afternoon for a few minutes, but it's all these little things that we are paying attention to, and the more we do it, we'll get better at it. So think of this like almost like dating. So like maybe you try new fabric or new outfit or new shirt or something, and you hate it, like, next. It doesn't have to be for you. Like, okay, it doesn't bring you flow. This is the same thing with, like, if you can't think of any ideas of trying to see what flow feels like for you so that you know, then think about when you were a child. Is there something you love to do? Or if you don't have memories of something that you absolutely lost track of time and loved doing when you were a kid, then maybe look at other kids you know and see what seems to put them in joy and pleasure and play. But you could literally play with Play-Doh. You could color, you could go running, you could lift weights, you could ride a bike. Usually, movement helps us change and shift our state. And so it does seem like a lot of times the things I'm doing to shift myself into flow involve me changing where I'm sitting, moving, what I'm doing with my body physically. That's one of the quickest ways to shift your state. So it's helpful to just try those. And if you tried roller skating and you're like, I haven't done that in a long time, and your ankles hurt too much or something, you could be like, okay, next, hated it. You have not lost anything. You try the next thing and you find out that you love walking near the water, and you realize how relaxed your body feels, and you love the smell of the fresh air by the sea. All of those are things you want to notice and pay attention. So our body's always trying to talk to us and tell us and give us hints and clues. Our knower is saying, hey, this is what flow feels like. Like, come over here. Like, our body wants to be in joy, ease, and pleasure. And so even when we're having to do things that aren't maybe as pleasurable, what's one thing you can add in to make it a little less miserable? So when I was moving somebody and it was raining, like, one of the things was I wanted to wear really cozy sweats, really warm, so I had to get some. And then we had some regular dance offs. So yes, that is a tool for me a lot, but it helped to, like, crank up some music and just let it go and just be silly for a couple minutes. Just kind of broke up the misery of being out in the rain like that. So we want to get better. You want to be like an investigator looking for clues when your body is trying to tell you, this is what I like to do. And you will actually be surprised that our body and our intuition, our gut, are actually constantly trying to lead us back to a state of flow and ease and pleasure and joy. And it's constantly giving us clues. But if you're so busy on your phone, you're never taking downtime, you're not trying new things, you're not asking the questions and setting the intention in the morning of, hey, I'm going to notice when I'm in flow today, and then I'm going to pay attention to what my body feels like and what I'm doing and what my environment's like, so that I can keep adding and replicating and putting myself in those kinds of situations more and more. Or how can I bring those things into my life more? Like my lighting, you could, if you had an office, you might not be able to have candles, but you could put like a jar thing that has some cool lighting on it most places. So, like, you just gotta look for those things. Maybe you just like colorful stuff. So, like, bring some pretty things in, whatever the thing is you need. Give yourself permission to try some stuff out so that you can be more in flow. We've talked now about some different ways to pay attention. So we've talked about what is flow, what is it not. We've talked about what that means and what it's teaching us, and how we can set an intention to listen and pay attention for those moments when we are in flow and not. And we've talked about some tools, like, I think a big one I didn't even mention is breath work. You can roll your eyes at that and call it whatever you want, but it might be that you are tense and not in flow. And let's not forget the basic free one you can do anywhere is just take some deep breaths into your belly, hold it for, like, breathe in through your nose for 4 counts, and then you hold it for 7, and then let it out slowly for 8. Try that for 3 or 4 breaths and just see how your body relaxes and how different you feel. It's a free thing, but breath can help you. Just regular slowing our breath can help us to get back to that flow state. So we've talked about those, and we've talked about some tools that we can use to add in other things, or maybe it's taking away. Maybe you don't want to wear makeup, or you don't want to wear belts anymore, or maybe there's crap in your house that stresses you out. And so you don't relax when you're at home at night, or maybe you turn the fucking ringer off your phone, dude. Come on. Like, these are things we all can try and do, but we're just like so bombarded all day long. So it's hard to listen when we're in flow and not. So this week going forward, I have a little homework for you. I just mentioned it. That is setting the intention before you get out of bed, just have the thought, I am going to notice when I am in flow today. And then the bonus would be to actually do it for the whole week every morning and see if you start to notice and what it actually feels like for you. And then the extra credit for this week would be, I would love to challenge you to try one new, but maybe old to you, or bring it back, retro activity that brings you some joy and pleasure. So like riding a bike, going for a walk outside, coloring, painting, you name it. Maybe it's skateboarding, whatever the thing is, go and spend 15-20 minutes minimum once this week doing something that brings you joy and pleasure that you haven't done in a while. And it cannot be done for the purpose of serving somebody else. This is just to bring yourself joy and pleasure. I know, crazy talk, right? So I hope that you'll take up that challenge and even get out that old notebook that isn't a journal, we'll call it, and maybe just make note of your observations of how your body feels when it's in flow and not, and maybe note what you did this week that was new or retro and really you enjoyed, or that you're like, yeah, definitely no, just noting how that went and if you want to do more of it. So, okay. I am so glad you joined today, and you know the drill. I would love it if you would share if you found this helpful, and also rate and review. And I love it when you leave comments and questions, because then I know what you're thinking and it helps me know what other things I can talk about in the future. And you can also jump on my website and connect further into the community with our newsletter or with our monthly quest calls. And that's something we do, so you can ask questions live there as well. And you can be on that website to see what other upcoming events we have. So I just want to thank you so much for joining me in my quest and your quest for more joy.